Vladimir Putin has troubles with moving his hands. A governor busts a referee corruption scandal scheme in Russian professional football. Russian spokesperson for federal police caught lying again. A high-ranked official denies Russians having PTSD. Sergei Shoygu commits a crime on camera. And the biggest news of the week, well, there are two news of the week. Russian utilities start collapsing all over Russia, and the national currency ruble crashes. Howdy, howdy, friends. My name is Konstantin, and welcome to Inside Russia, where usual Russia is explained by the unusual Russian. You know, usually I don't do this. I usually don't give you crazy news updates on Wednesdays. I try to diversify my reach a little bit by reporting world news every Wednesday. But it didn't feel right. The world news are fine and interesting, and Russian take on world news is also interesting, and a lot of people seem to watch it. But Russia has entered an incredibly turbulent period. It is feverish, and I would say it's falling apart. It's not well. It's shaking. It's shaking before falling apart. This might be the agony. And I need to document that. And Fridays are not enough. I do 1 hour report every Friday, and I can only give you a fraction of the news that I find interesting and important. So I've decided to try to give you more news from Russia that I call crazy news, because they are crazy. So I've decided to add this crazy news on every Wednesday. So let's try it a few weeks, and if you like it, we'll keep this, and if you don't like it, we'll just go back to the old format. And please let me know down in the comments below which way you like more on Wednesdays, the world news as seen from Russia, or more crazy news coming out of Russia. Now, before jumping to the news, I'd like to start with a fresh joke. Elvira Nabiulina comes to Vladimir Putin to report him the state of Russian economy. Vladimir Vladimirovich, says Nabiulina, we have some great news today. Russian ruble has showed a stable and big growth of 12% in the last 2 weeks. Only that growth is negative. Now, let's jump straight to the news. Let me start with the funny news first, and it's about Vladimir Putin. Yes, sometimes funny news come out about him. Russian president is right now visiting Kazakhstan. Well, it's a regular visit, nothing extraordinary. Putin visits Kazakhstan a few times a year, and that's one of those times. And in the past, almost every single time, Vladimir Putin mispronounces the name of Kazakh president, Kassym-Jomart Kemelyevich Tokayev. Check this video out, fresh out of Kazakhstan.
Уважаемый Kassym-Jomart Kemelyevich, уважаемые коллеги, я хочу прежде всего поблагодарить президента за такую торжественную встречу. Kassym-Jomart Kemelyevich.
Самого президента Казахстана. Kassym-Jomart Kemelyevich Tokayev.
Wrong! He mispronounced his name again. I find it funny. So, pretty amusing. Another news is also about Vladimir Putin, but it's not funny any longer. It's actually freaky. I'm not the one who noticed it, but I am retranslating this for you, and you gotta know. Recently, Vladimir Putin ordered to hit Ukraine with a ballistic missile. And after, he addressed Russian citizens with a speech that lasted about 8 minutes. And I covered the whole thing in a live stream made a few days ago. And if you learn more about that strike in details and what it means for the world, for Russia, check it out. I'm gonna put a link right up here. So now check this out. And I find this pretty freaky. Watch Vladimir Putin's hands. That's entire 8-minute speech fast forwarded. They don't move a bit. Not one single inch, not a millimeter, not a centimeter, nothing. Again, I find this pretty darn freaky. Obviously, it looks like video editing, and it's a very odd video editing. What really happened to the arms of Russian president, and why they had to edit them out? Interesting. Many experts and reporters have noticed it, but I am yet to hear one normal explanation of this phenomenon. If you have any ideas, please let me know down below in the comments. Let me know what you think of Putin's hands. This disease, like he's sick? Is he reptiloid, an android? What do you think? I honestly don't know what to think. Another news is about truth. Truth always comes through, just a matter of time. I started telling the truth on the day one about this criminal war, February 24th, 2022. Does anyone remember the video that I filmed right after I learned about Russia invading Ukraine? I was feeling so angry and helpless that I actually shed tears. Check out that video if you haven't seen it. I'm gonna place a link right above here, over here, just about here. So I started telling the truth right away, day one, and I haven't stopped. But Russian government used propaganda to actually hide the truth, to replace it with lies. They have been engineering information to mess with Russian people's brains. They have been sugarcoating the reality. And they succeeded, both in Russia and in the West. And what is much more surprising to me is how they have succeeded so brilliantly in the West. I mean, they made so many people in the West believe them. But anyway, they painted the picture of Russia normal when Russia was anything but normal. I mean, how can you be normal if you start a war, waging a war on your neighbor, killing people and ruining your own country? That's far from normal. Now the time has come when they can't maintain their sugarcoating anymore. They can't maintain their lies anymore. Truth is coming through. And I want you to see something. I like to show things. I don't like just to talk, okay? I like to have proof of my words. That is one of the faces of lies. An outspoken Z person, Z reporter, who had been covering truth up following the propaganda's agenda. But now he's turned around, and this is what he has to say. Check this out. I'll translate. He says now it's going to the second thousands of days. It's been 1,000. Says that the goals of the special military operation, how they call the war, they have not been achieved and they will not be achieved. And I remind you, in February of 24th on February 2022, they announced that the goals were to denazify, to demilitarize Ukraine. And he's saying that two myths been busted. One myth is of how strong Russian army is, and that's the myth he was maintaining himself. And the second myth that everything is going fine. Says we don't have any weapons, like they were telling us we have the very advanced weapons. No. Don't have any expertise. We don't have smart people in the army. You know, we're in trouble, basically. Ukraine is not ideal either, but Russia is so much worse. It's not SVO, it's war. It's not going to add, and it's not going to add nicely for Russia. The sugarcoating is over. Russians are meeting harsh reality face to face now. Well, you know what? 2.5 years they have been believing the obvious lies. They have not used their brains. They did not think critically. They're waking up now, and good luck to them. The next news is actually about PTSD, or the lack of it in Russia. President's special envoy in the Urals, that's a region of Russia, Artyom Zhoga, this guy right here, he is confident that the participants of the special military operation, that's how they call the war in Russia, are not at risk of the Afghan syndrome. Afghan syndrome is what Russians call PTSD, because some Russians don't believe that PTSD exists. They think it's fake. It's something fake made up by the evil West to destroy Russia. But it exists. You can't hide it, so they call it the Afghan syndrome. They gotta explain it one way or another. So I quote Zhoga. Sometimes I am asked about how the participants of the SVO, the war, can avoid the Afghan syndrome. When our guys returned from Afghanistan, they went into the life of crime and drinking and drugs. That's the fact. However, I say that it is not a syndrome. It's just a state that they were in. In that time, it was the 90s, and the collapse of the Soviet Union was going on. Everyone had to survive at best they could. When the guys returned, they were told, "We didn't send you there," I unquote. He added that there are no conditions exists for such situation today. I quote again, "We will not return to the Afghan syndrome because it doesn't exist. If we start engaging with our guys when they return home, we will not have such problem as they had after the Afghanistan," I unquote. Do you know what I am really sorry about? That people who say things like that, most likely they will not be held responsible for their words after things will change. Zhoga said something very stupid, uneducated at best. PTSD doesn't exist in Russia. It has a possibility to become one of Russia's biggest problems for generations to come. It's scary to think what will happen when the remaining Russian soldiers, Russian men, those who killed in the front lines, when they return to their devastated country. And, if you watch this live stream until the end, you will understand it's being devastated economically because the Russian ruble is collapsing. It has collapsed already. But for now, Russians believe that PTSD doesn't exist. Well, time will tell soon, and I think they will face harsh reality face to face, just like they're facing other issues. And by the way, I want you to think of something. Mark this guy down, Zhoga. I mean, it's a very long shot, and I understand that I'm not an expert in inside of the Kremlin politics and the inner circle. I don't really know what's going on there. But this guy might be a successor of Vladimir Putin. This guy might be next president of Russia. And I'm not crazy, okay? Hear me out. The thing is, he kind of reminds me of Vladimir Putin when he became the president. Vladimir Putin was a nobody. He was a small-time potato inside the government of St. Petersburg, city government, okay? And he was fired. His boss lost elections, and the new boss fired everyone, including Vladimir Putin, and he moved to Moscow, and he got a job at the office of chief of staff of the president of Russia Federation as a favor. Somebody, he did something valuable to one of the people from Moscow, and they returned the favor. They got them a job. And then they made him a president because he was a nobody and he didn't have a team. And what they thought, he was absolutely dependable. Okay, he was weak and he could be manipulated. It was a puppet. This guy reminds me of Vladimir Putin in the 90s, mid-90s. So, I mean, it's a long shot, but mark my words down. Something tells me that Putin is not afraid of him. Putin has noticed him. This is the guy who asked Putin to go for the 5th term, okay? And Putin is promoting him. He's made him a representative in the Urals region right now. Vladimir Putin just added him to the Security Council of Russia, which is unheard of. So, keep an eye on that guy, Zhoga. Moving on to the police news. And it's a very amusing news. Actually, you're going to love it. The news that doesn't make sense. The news that has a lie inside, actually 2 lies. According to the special spokesperson of the federal police, Irina Volk, and that is the lady. According to Irina Volk, as of November 1st, 2024, the personnel shortage in the federal police was 18.8%, or 173,000 policemen. Volk also noted that there have been an increasing trend towards the shortage in the recent years, meaning there is a bigger and bigger shortage. It's growing. It has been growing for years. Now, that is a very interesting fact. Do you know that I monitor and follow most Russian news? And I have a very good memory. And let me remind you something. 20th of October, 2022, 2 years ago exactly, the head of federal police, Kolokoltsev, that's the federal minister. His ministry is called the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and that is federal police. He is basically country's chief policeman. He stated in front of the Russian parliament that the shortage of personnel of federal police was 20%. That is the proof. That is the news. I remember, and here's something to back it up. Now, his spokesperson, Volk, says that the situation has been worsening for 2 years, and now the shortage is 18.8%. Do you see the discrepancy here? So, who lied? Kolokoltsev in 2022, or to the senators of Russian Federation, or Volk to the Russians now? Caught red-handed. Line. Caught red-handed by Konstantin. But that's not it. That's a very, very amusing piece of news. Despite this significant shortage and the additional workload on the personnel, units of the federal police continue to fulfill tasks assigned to them, such as combating crime, ensuring law and order, and protecting citizens' rights and freedoms, says Folk. Ain't it this wonderful? Wonderful. You know, they're short on people, 20%, 18.8%, whatever, you know, 173,000 policemen. That's what they're short on. And they're working. Moreover, over the past 10 years, the number of registered crimes in Russia decreased by 12.8%. Assaults against people decreased by 45.9%. Imagine how safe Russia has become. Murders and attempted murders decreased by 42.3%. The number of intentional inflictions of serious harm to health of citizens decreased by more than half. And that is also stated by Irina Volk, this wonderful person. But you know what? Konstantin has good memory. On April 7th, 2024, this year, the very same chief of the federal police, Kolokoltsev, publicly stated that the number of serious crimes in Russia actually increased. And this is the proof. He gave an interview to RIA Novosti, Russia's largest news agency. That's official stuff. The number of serious crimes has increased. So, who lied? Kolokoltsev back then or Volk right now? Caught red-handed by Konstantin. And the icing on top of the cake. I mean, this news doesn't make any sense, really. Why did they come up with it? So, Russian taxpayers have to ask a serious question right now. Should they increase the funding of the federal police, as the federal police is asking, begging, demanding, or not? I mean, look, on one hand, Volk says that there is a 18.8% shortage of personnel, 173,000 people short. And at the same time, the policemen are working so effectively that, according to Volk, the number of crimes is decreasing. Perhaps there were too many policemen in the first place. So the ministry is doing better with fewer policemen. Definitely the numbers that Volk just gave us, they're showing that. 3 bloopers in one public statement. My gosh. Do they even think when they prepare statements, public statements? I don't think so, you know. Oh, lies, lies, lies. Just like my grandfather used to teach me. You see a policeman in the USSR walking towards you, stop, cross the road, and walk around him. Hey, you know, that advice never failed. Lies, lies, nothing but lies. Let's move to a corruption scandal news in a Russian region of Samara. The governor of Samara province, Vyacheslav Fedorishev, said that the management of Krylya Soveta football club, was going to pay 36 million Russian rubles, that's about $3.5 million, to, I quote, unnamed criminals who are engaged in corruption in the refereeing corps of Russian football. In other words, $3.6 million were to be paid as bribes to the referees by a professional club. Samara governor also noted that about 10 professional football clubs of the Russian Premier League participate in this referee bribing scheme, and the volume of the bribes reaches 500 million rubles. That's about $50 million. That Russian government official, highly ranked official, governor, you know, speaking in public press conference on the record that you know, attracts my, I give him my respect. Check this out. He's basically explaining that a couple months ago, an employee of a football club came to him and said, look, you're covering the debts of the football club, then we also have a debt of 36 million rubles. You've got it covered. He says, who's that debt to? What for? He said, well, I can't tell you, but that concerns the referees, If I tell you, it'd be illegal. So corruption in the referee corps. And, this is... he just tells you how it is in the Russian professional football. I absolutely love it. One of those moments that I have nothing to add. Caught red-handed. Before moving to the next news, I would like to take a sip of this wonderful English breakfast tea. That's what I drink all the time, pretty much. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you. Thank you, everyone who is supporting me, who is watching my video now. Thank you. Thank everyone who comes back every day, likes videos, comments, participates in live stream chats. I have gone through pretty hard times lately. I had Bell's palsy. Half of my face was paralyzed for a month. So I had lots of people supporting me with messages, emails, with prayers. I received so much love. Thank you so very much. I also am thanking everyone who's bought me coffees at buymecoffee.com, became patrons at patreon.com, and send money via PayPal. Thank you so very much. Much appreciated, much needed. Thank you. You have my word. No matter what happens, I'm still demonetized by Google. It's not moving anywhere. But demonetized or monetized, doesn't matter. I will keep on getting in front of the camera every day and telling you the truth about what is happening in my country, Russia. So again, thank you so very much from the bottom of my heart. The next news comes from Afghanistan. Russia's head of Security Council, Sergei Shoygu, traveled to Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan. Check this out. In Kabul, he met with Sirajuddin Haqqani, formerly the most wanted Taliban militant. He is now holds the post of Interior Minister of Afghanistan. Shoygu shaking the hand of the most wanted terrorist, murderer, and a scum. And that was right there in front of you. Camera caught the moment when Sergei Shoygu breaks Russian criminal code. He commits the crime in front of the camera. Because the Taliban are still considered a terrorist organization in Russia, and any contact with any Taliban member, and even mentioning the Taliban in the media without saying that they are a terrorist organization, is a crime in Russia. So Shoygu has just been caught red-handed. This is the day of Russian officials getting caught red-handed. But one interesting thing, no one in Russia seems to care. Not the authorities, let alone the people. Am I the only one noticing these things? Why am I the only one who cares, who thinks it's not normal? To me, that is obvious, but I am the only one. Sometimes I feel like I'm sitting in the desert and I'm looking at things and no one else sees them, I'm the only one. Insane. Now, a very odd news, kind of news that doesn't happen in Russia often. An attorney from Voronezh. Voronezh is a large city, 1 million people city. They had the capital of the province, Voronezh province. It's between Rostov and Moscow. So an attorney, a regular attorney from Voronezh, has secured an investigation into fraud in Putin's presidential elections. When I read that, my jaw dropped. Voronezh attorney Ilya Sivoldayev succeeded in investigating fraud of the presidential election of the Russian Federation in March. That happened in March of this year. The Central Election Committee, the Investigative Committee, and the District Court of Voronezh refused to look for falsifications, but the attorney was persistent. Basically, these three big agencies shut him down. They said, we don't want to investigate. So local political activists found that Vladimir Putin had some fake votes in Voronezh. That indicates the existence of a crime of falsification of voting results according to the Article 142.1 of the Criminal Code of Russian Federation. And crimes qualified under this article are punishable by up to 4 years in prison. However, the investigative committee, that's the main government agency that, investigates the crimes, Attorney General. So the investigative committee refused to conduct investigation of this falsification, potential falsification. The Central Election Committee stated that they did not recognize the legitimate protocol from the polling stations presented as evidence. And the Central District Court of Voronezh also refused to investigate the falsifications. I think they refused without any explanation, because they can. So far, it sounds very normal in Putin's Russia. I mean, it happens all the time. It's called lawlessness. But this is where it gets interesting. The attorney Ilya Sivoldayev decided to bring the case all the way and appealed to the Voronezh Regional Court. That's the highest circuit. And they recognized the inaction of the investigation committee staff as illegal and ordered the investigation committee to launch an official investigation into the election fraud, which resulted in Vladimir Putin becoming the president of Russia for the 5th time. Wow. This is unusual. You see, miracles do happen, even in Putin's Russia. So what will happen? I think nothing, but, I kind of feel better after reading this. Makes me feel good. Okay. Before we move to the next news, I'd like to ask you a favor. Let me know which 3 news you like the most in today's live stream. It's really important for me to know, so I will fine-tune my next news selection. And please like this video, of course. I hope you're liking it, and if you do, hit the like button. Ta-dang! If you haven't subscribed and you're here for the first time, please do so. So you get notifications of every single day, because I do live streams and videos every single day. I only miss when I am physically sick. And it happens once in a while, but not often. I also would like to remind you that every single day I carefully select and post 9 news that I find important and matter with my commentaries and analysis at patreon.com. I make them available to patrons of Inside Russia. So if you want to stay on top of things in Russia, to know what happens there every day, the breaking news that matter, you know where to look. Become patron at Inside Russia and on patreon.com, and you'll be there. I'm going to put the link down below after I finish this live stream. That's how YouTube lets me post links only after the live stream is done. And the last but not least, and certainly the most important news today, well, there are 2 news. At first, I was going to make the title news Russian utilities. They have started to collapse. it was expected, and I have spoken. If you follow my YouTube channel and my videos, I've spoken about it quite often. This is not a global collapse happening right now, not yet, but this is just the beginning. This, what I'm going to show you today, gives you a pretty darn good idea of how things are shaping up. But as I was preparing this crazy news update, something else happened, much more grander than utility collapse, you know. It's another collapse. Russian ruble collapsed. Let's talk of the utilities first. The last week I showed you Rostov-on-Don. Near Maine, in a very city center, the heat main broke down and boiling water started gushing out. And this is the video. So this is the very center of Rostov-on-Don. I know this place. It's a very prime real estate, the most expensive real estate you can find. It kind of doesn't look it this way, but you know, trust me, that's what it is. It's Pushkinskaya. So that is a very common problem for Russian utility system. The pipelines are very old, and even when I was young, 40 years ago, and I was going to second or third grade, and at that time I already walked to school by myself, and you know, after school I would go and play on the streets. My parents always taught me to stay away from puddles with boiling water, or I could burn myself to death. Well, that water probably was not boiling, but it was very, very hot. It definitely burnt you. And in the city of Rostov, every single winter, they were, you know, breakdowns of the mains, heating supply systems, and one child would die, would, you know, burn to death, boil to death, you know. So that was like a big scare among parents. And this has started happening again in Rostov-on-Don. Now, this is from the last week. And this is this week. Oh, it doesn't look like it's Rostov. Oh, I apologize. Anyway, I tell you what, it started happening all over Russia. I have a long clip, videos put together, and Rostov is in there too. So I will comment as they go. I want to make an emphasis. It is happening not just in one city, not in Rostov, not in Voronezh, not in Omsk. It is happening all over Russia. Just look, and this is the last week, last few days. This is Omsk, a city in Siberia, a huge fountain of boiling water. You step there and, you know, you're done. This is Yekaterinburg. This is what I was going to show you. Rostov-on-Don. This is a fountain of hot water. Hot water spring. And this is Tyumen. And this is Saratov. A car actually, yeah, check this out. A car fell into a hole. This is what happens quite often. Hot water runs underneath pavement, and pavement caves in. And the cars or people, they just fall down there. The reports are saying that no one died in that car. They were able to get out, but the car fell down into hot water. And this is Volgograd, Volsky, Vladivostok, far east of Russia. And the old lady fell into water and she burned. She was, they did a surgery on her. She's okay, but so much of her skin burned. This is Chelyabinsk. This is hot stuff. Okay, Volgograd again. Kostroma. Archangel. So, friends, a big breakdown happened in St. Petersburg, all over Russia. And what really is alarming, it already happened in about 4 weeks ago in Novosibirsk. About 30,000 people were left without central heat for quite some time. And what usually happened, that Russia, you can divide Russia in two parts virtually. One part is the southern part that doesn't have harsh climate. And another part is Siberia, the Urals, very, very harsh climate, very tough cold winters. And in Rostov and in the southern cities, they didn't pay much attention to upkeep of the utilities, heating in the winter, because winters weren't harsh. But in the cities like Chelyabinsk, Omsk, Novosibirsk, that's serious, okay? Because if heating doesn't work, people freeze to death. So they paid a lot of attention they spent lots of money on maintaining their central heat supply systems. And last year, there was a big problem in the northern cities with cold climates. And this year, it's not even winter yet, and things already start breaking down. I've been telling about the utilities breaking down this year would be a huge problem, disaster. And it's not waiting to happen. It will happen. I am absolutely sure, because I know that they did not maintain the systems properly, because they've cut funding. The money go to support the war now, and they're having huge problems with personnel and with equipment, because most of the equipment they use in the systems is foreign made. No spare parts, no replacements, things like that. So the disaster will happen, okay? And this is the start, just the very start of the heating season. And remember, it's not even winter. Not winter yet, it's still fall. Imagine what is coming. So I've just showed you kind of a preview. And now, the most important news that happened in Russia, well, still happening as I speak, also was not unexpected. I forecasted it for a long time, and to any economic scientist, this news was obvious to happen. Russian ruble devalued. Big deal. Huge. Not just devalued, but collapsed. Today, Russian ruble hit 100.9 rubles, 90 kopecks to $1 at some point of the day. Then went down a little bit, but that level was reached. Almost 110 rubles. And at the Forex exchange, currency exchange, and it's not located in Russia, it's a foreign, international. Ruble was traded for 114 rubles for $1. I heard, I didn't see it myself, but I heard in the news that it reached 120 rubles for $1 at some point. It's definitely is not the case now, but I believe it. I believe that at some point demand was for dollars, or actually people wanted to get rid of rubles so bad that they were selling it for 120. Now, 107.28. That's the official exchange rate. They closed the trading day, but they don't really trade the currency these days because it's not fiat. We haven't seen these numbers since March 2022, where everyone was panicking. Okay. Now, this is how the graph looks right now. In the last 2 weeks, in the last 3 months, Russian ruble has lost 27% of its value, and it has lost 13% of the value in just 1 week. This graph is the death of Russian ruble, basically. Why? Because ruble is not a fiat currency. So the central bank sets the exchange rate to US dollar and to other foreign currencies basically as it sees fit, as it finds fit. Russian ruble it needed to be devalued. The central bank waited until the end of the year. Do you know what happens now? Time to pay the government bills. The federal budget deficit is much higher than it was announced by the government earlier, in the middle of the year, in the beginning of the year. Okay, they were announcing 1.1 trillion rubles. Now, all of a sudden, they say, well, you know what? We spent more than we hoped for. So the deficit now is 3.3 and probably going to be even worse. Going to be even more. Surprise, surprise, you know. Not if you watch my streams. I forecasted in January. So they need to come up with extra 2 trillion Russian rubles to cover the deficit. And how to do that? Easy solution. To devalue ruble. You see, they have lots of dollar payments coming into Russia because Russia still sells natural gas, sells oil, and whoever buys it, they pay dollars, okay? And dollars come in. And if you devalue, if you set the exchange rate lower for ruble, then for the same amount of dollars, you get more rubles, plain and simple. That's it. That's just it's a Russian government way out to pay the deficit, so to speak, you know. But I don't think they want to devalue Russian rubles so badly, you know, so huge. A new sanctions package was implemented a few days ago, forbidding the world to transfer funds to do business with a few dozen more Russian banks. Among them, there is Gazprom. And that is a very important bank because that is a center, a processing center for oil and natural gas trade. Basically, banning this bank is a huge blow because now this channel of receiving dollars and euros into Russia has been closed. And they need to find a new way around it, and they have not found it so far. And now in Russia, the lack of dollar, the shortage of dollars, the dollar, it's called dollar liquidity, is growing because dollars are not coming in. Therefore, US dollar immediately started growing in price in Russia. The demand for dollar is growing. Therefore, it's applying additional pressure on Russian ruble. So they started devaluing it, and then the sanctions hit, and then they had a synergy effect, so to speak. And in my mind, that's what caused this big devaluation of Russian ruble. But you know what? That's technical stuff. I will cover it later in an economic video, economic stream. Now I really want you to tell you the implications of devaluing of Russian ruble and the reaction of the officials and the society. And that's where it gets super interesting. It is not good for Russian manufacturers and Russian consumers. Definitely not good to have ruble at such rate. It's actually very simple. The manufacturers, the producers, they will pay more as most of Russian manufacturers use foreign-made components and machinery and equipment and technologies in the process of manufacturing. Their production cost will increase and the consumers will pick up the bills. and they will simply pay more to make stuff, and then they will charge more to sell stuff, okay? The consumers, regular Russian people, they get paid in Russian rubles, and their salaries, they stay the same. I mean, they don't fluctuate with dollar exchange rate. They're, if you receive 50,000 rubles every month from Russian government, you will receive it regardless. So imagine that in 3 months, Russian ruble has lost 26% of purchasing power of its value. And then that means that Russian folks have lost 26% of their salaries. As if someone came right now to you and cut your salary by 26%. The prices stay the same, but you earn 26% less now. Or you earn the same, but the prices go by 26%. It's kind of the same thing, So this ruble devaluation will also drive inflation up even higher, and Russia is right now having incredibly high inflation, and the prices will be increasing more and more in a vicious circle. And this time, the jump in the inflation will be very sudden and huge. Wait for 3 more weeks right before New Year, right before the holidays, and see. Mark my words, in 3 weeks, Russian people will see an incredible jump in prices for everything. And it's bad, bad, bad. Now, what is the reaction? Russian media, Russian propaganda, Russian officials, and most important, what is the reaction among Russian people for this? In March 2022, I was in Russia, in Rostov and in Moscow, and I was witnessing everything. And guess what? The first things that Russians started reacted about the start of the war was panic, financial panic. People foresaw that Russian ruble would be devaluing, and it was dropping like crazy. And they started buying dollars, exchanging rubles for dollars. People were running around. News were all about Russian ruble. Ruble was devaluing fast, and it was in the news. There were so many articles about it. The experts were coming out and saying, and it was happening for the same reason as now. Purchasing power, inflation. People were afraid to lose their purchasing power of their money. They were afraid to get stuck with the same amount of rubles that simply would be able to buy less. And that makes perfect sense, Now, I was thinking, what analogy would be good to make? Imagine there's fire, a big fire, and a lot of people standing, and there's a few firefighter engines, and the firefighters running around and doing different things, screaming, walking on walkie-talkies, and people, regular people, helping them, giving them water, holding something for them. And it's a big, big commotion around that fire. That's how the situation looked 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, in March of 2022. And it's looking completely different now. Now, I want you to take a look at this. I will translate from Russian to English. Now, this is a Russian media. It's an internet site called Lenta.ru. Okay, it's read by tens and tens of millions of Russian people. It's very popular, and it's part of Russian propaganda. And usually it gives news as they happen. It's a breaking news site. Now, I want you to read. I want to read to you the news of today. And the biggest and the main news was Russian ruble dropping its value like crazy, devaluing. Okay, it's like a big fire going on. Guess what? In Ukraine, in the office of President Zelensky, there are calls to come back to the borders of the year 2022 to start negotiations. What other conditions will Kyiv give? NATO has explained the meaning of the stand with Russia. The safest city in Russia has been announced. The Ukrainian armed forces attacked one of Russian cities again. Kazakh president announced signing of 20 agreements within Russia and Kazakhstan. In the West, they opened the plans of the USA and Europe about the conflict in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin called Kazakhstan a reliable partner and an ally, strategic partner of Russia. The USA and China have conducted exchange of prisoners. There are ways, experts say the ways to rent your apartment at a good price. Someone got raped. The Russian parliament, the state senators, are outraged by high prices for tickets to the Bolshoi Theater, to the ballet. Well, that's great. That's great. The experts are telling Russians where to invest, the best ways to invest right now. The Ministry of Defense of Russia has showed footage of killing some armed forces of Ukraine in Kharkov region and so forth. Friends, this is how premier Russian news site looked today, a few hours ago. You know, there's a complete lack of mentioning of what's happening with Russian ruble. It's amazing. The very same site in 2022 it looked so different. It was all about ruble. What's going to happen to ruble? You know, what are the prognoses? What is the forecast of experts and different experts speaking on it? Now, zilch, okay? And Russian officials are very calm. Obviously, that is an agenda of Russian government, of Russian propaganda. Now, look what Peskov says about this devaluation of Russian ruble. Which currency do you get paid in? Russian rubles. We do all with Kazakhstan and inside Russia. We do all transactions in Russian ruble, and that's great, you know. So no worries. You get paid in Russian rubles and you spend Russian rubles, Peskov says. Yes, nothing to worry about whatsoever. Now the Slutsky, one of the heavyweight senators, the leader of a large political party, LDP, Russian ruble is the hardest currency in the world. You know, there's different situations happen. If it falls down, then it'll rebound. Very difficult situation in the country right now. You know, we're surrounded by enemies. We will be victorious. We will overcome everything. Now the central bank is going to support Russian ruble, and we will support the Russian central bank. So they're not selling Russian currency anymore. It is right. That's right. Because we need to stabilize ruble, you know. And then Russian Minister of the Ministry of Finances, Russian Minister Siluanov, that's what he said. He called current dollar exchange rate good for exporting. Basically, he explained that the exporters that manufacture or extract or produce something in Russia and sell it abroad will benefit weak ruble and strong dollar. And they will, that is true. The problem is that there are not too many companies that export things now to outside Russia. Okay, obviously, natural gas, Gazprom, and oil companies, they do, and they will benefit, that's for sure, because they pay in rubles the salaries in the exchange. That is a huge cost they incur, but they will say in dollars. They will sell outside in dollars. But no one benefits except them. So Silovanov is not telling the whole truth. It's just tiny bit of truth and trying to calm everyone down. I called Russia today and I asked numerous people, what is going on? And you know what? I was absolutely shocked by the answer. Said, not much. Yes, we know of the ruble losing value. Hey, okay, it's losing, so what? Friends, like I said, in 2022, the situation was completely opposite. People were running around trying to save their money, savings, trying to do something, trying to be active, trying to get information from the banks, and there were lions in the banks. And now, not much, as if they just don't care. And that is absolutely amazing. Again, I will do a live stream explaining what the weak ruble means for Russian economy, for Russian people, for Russian government. Basically, I talked already about that, but I didn't really talk when the ruble was that low at 110. It's absolutely crazy. Basically, in a nutshell, Russian government benefits. Everyone else loses. But we'll talk about it later. Crazy news. I can't find another word. I thought crazy news come out of Russia every single day. Again, don't forget about Patreon. Become patron of Inside Russia to get access to 9 news that matter, the most important news of the day, any day. Thank you so very much. And now I would like you to watch the military-industrial complex and the central bank declaring war on each other. There is a huge battle of power, political power clans happening in Russia. And I just made a video about that. The link is right here. Please check it out.